Hello YouTube and newsletter subscribers. This is Terrell from Terrell3.com. Today is Thursday, March 27th, 2014. This is the Black Star update for volume 13 of Terrell's 2014 newsletter. This is a little bit different. There's not a lot has changed since the last week. So I'm giving you guys a report through the questions and answers. And Bonnie's come up with with good questions on the potential kill shot of May 2014. This continues to be my focus. This is the most important period in the entire 2014 Earth orbit cycle, May of 2014, particularly in the third week. I'm expecting to see cluster of X-class flares beginning the month in the first week, and then the severe ones coming in the third week. And there's a safe zone map here you guys can click on to see where the safest places are in the United States. And there's going to be references here to suspicious observers. I still think he's one of the best, if not the best, weathermen on the internet. He gives great update reports. We're going to disagree on the conclusions about what's causing the anomalous activity, but the guy does a really good job of keeping track of the sun. And he does mention the shrinking heliosphere again in his update this week. And you're seeing increasing reports of interplanetary shock waves. You're going to see that on about 10 to 11 day cycles if it's like the previous 2 years. And in this article I'm going to give you some of what I watch as patterns. The earth changes are one thing, and then there are other researchers doing reports, and every year they come out with these reports using the same keywords but later each year. So whenever you take go back to February the 5th, that's what I mentioned here. That's when suspicious observers began making reports of the interplanetary shock waves. So you take the number of days from the beginning of that orbit cycle, which was December 28th, 2012, add the number of days, move everything around, then you can kind of predict when these guys are going to start reeling off the same news. But it's not at the same time each year. It's later each year. And the number of days that we're adding is going to average the same number of days that we added for each Earth orbit cycle. So I also recommend United Knowledge. His name is Lance, very brilliant guy, really like him. He's focusing more and more on the big booms and the patterns, the seismic cycle of what's going on in the New Madrid area, but he covers it all across the United States. I strongly recommend that you keep an eye on what he's saying. And if you're like me, you're going to be comparing what he's saying this year compared to last year and compared to the year before, and you're going to note that everything is happening a little bit later in the cycle. Astral Traveler, his channel is right here. He watches the magnetosphere as well as anybody. And although he doesn't speak, he's from Northern Europe. He doesn't speak in his videos. If you can keep up with what he's typing, it's a little bit frustrating sometimes, but he does recognize, like Lance does. I've talked with Lance personally. He recognizes there's an object out there that's causing these phenomena, but he's not as vocal about it being a black star, where you see Astral Traveler is going to be talking about Nibiru and Planet X and things like that. He does see it. We disappear on where the anomalous activities are being generated. He sees it more over in Aquarius. There's no seismic pattern coming out of Aquarius or anything leading up to that. The seismic pattern has been in Leo and in Virgo. Let me get to my website. Then this is my website, and this is how you become a newsletter subscriber. You can begin sending me your questions. I will do threat assessment for you, show you where the safest place is to be, advise you on whether you are in a safe zone, you're not in a safe zone, survival supplies, blah, 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 blah. Then this is the scripture section. More and more people are catching on to the two Gospels of the New Testament, two churches, four baptisms, and these introductory principles so that they can get into my book, The Mystery Explained, and benefit. All this other stuff is going to be unimportant later, once all this blows over. But this part right here will be important to the end of all the ages. So I want to try to point more and more people in that direction. The more questions we get, the more answers I provide in the newsletter, the easier it is for others to recognize the patterns, the three witnesses in God's living word. So this shows this seismic pattern that has been followed for the last 3 to 4 years shows that the black star was in Leo. It moved through Virgo, It is now in Libra and it's moving towards Scorpio. Okay, these are the backside alignment events that were predicted, that took place. This last one took place later. If you notice, these areas are getting larger and larger because this object is picking up velocity. It's going faster and faster and faster. If we were dealing with an object like Saturn that had a circular orbit, then these would stay even. And with Saturn, you have a 189-day cycle. There is a seismic cycle that fits for Saturn, but it is not nearly as large. We're looking at 5 magnitude quakes in comparison to 9 magnitude quakes like Fukushima, and 8.8 magnitude quake for Chile. A pair of 8s here, you see. So this is the dominant seismic cycle that's been identified, and it tells us where the object is on the near side, when the Earth is on the near side of the Sun, and when the Earth is on the back side of the Sun. This was our projected event here was actually closer. I was 10 days off, and that was the Japan quake event amid the X-class flares on either side. Looking for the same thing over here, much larger X-class flares, and that is really, really what I'm concerned about. So let's go to Solar System Scope and see where we are currently in this cycle. If you look at the Sun, see Saturn there, and look on the other side, you see Libra. Okay, because Saturn has been our best witness. In 2010, Saturn was back over here, 23 days ahead of the black star, right? The next year, the Saturn was 24 days in front of the black star. Now, the black star is catching Saturn very, very close, and I believe that the black star, believe it or not, is somewhere in this circle right there, which places it in the Libra constellation. Now, from Earth perspective, we would look at this object that is more over to the left of Libra, backing up as the Earth moves in between the two stars, because it's closer. It's much closer, way closer than Libra, closer than Saturn. See, so it's moving from our left to our right since we were at outside orbit position over here. When we're behind the Sun, we're going this way, then the black star would appear to be going in the opposite direction. So we have 6 months near side, 6 months back side. We cross, we pivot at the outside orbit positions. We passed beyond that on February the 1st, 2014. So I'm showing you some of the indicators, not only in the Earth changes, but also in the way that it's being reported, and watching the patterns of other researchers and the keywords that they're using. So later down the road, if this was like 9/11, that's what enabled me to figure out the patterns, was by the keywords, the keyword usage that everybody used, and particularly the words that they never used. That helped me to identify who were good guys, who were bad guys, who were working for the lettered agencies, who was running disinformation operations, and so forth. The problem with the Black Star, Project Black Star, is that whenever the Black Star gets here, it's too late. The power grids go down. There's no way, we can't use hindsight. We have to use predictive modeling to anticipate, and because it's going to be too late. And this is kind of like in the days of Noah, like I said last week, that everybody thought Noah was crazy for building an ark out in the middle of nowhere right up until it started to rain. So he was wrong for 120 years until it started to rain. But then nobody was around to pat him on the back and tell him he was right. So that's the way that we are. That's the way that I feel in this investigation. I'm trying to gather enough data to complete the book, Project Black Star, but I do not have enough data yet to draw definitive conclusions. So like for the scripture book that took decades to write, I finally reached the point to draw definitive conclusions with the three witnesses. With 9/11, the same thing in 2010, enough data to write the book. I'm having that problem here, and it may never be written because of that, because it happens suddenly. I do not know 100% whenever the Earth gets in between these two stars if we're going to have a geological pole shift. I don't know for 100% for sure. It's an anomalous object. I don't know for sure, but by the time I do know for sure, I'll be able to write it down in a book. But if I'm right, there won't be anybody around to read it. So that's why I encourage people, become newsletter subscribers, get your input, send me your questions, try to join the revolution and help us to solve the mystery of what's going on with our changing solar system, the heliosphere shrinking, the solar output, solar cycle 24 flatlining, magnetic pole migration happening here on the Earth, superstorm on Saturn, Jupiter's core is liquefying, Venus's rotation is slowing down. So why are these changes happening in our solar system? And I think that it has to do with the black star and its interaction with our star. I believe that that's the answer. So anyway, I want to spend this a little bit of time before I get to the radio schedule to go through a few events that I'm keeping an eye on here. And I think that this is occupying the minds of a lot of people that are in the world right now. This thing that's going on in Russia, I'm actually standing on the side of Russia in this. The power vacuum has been created by the United States in killing all these kings, deposing all these people, murdering in the Middle East, upsetting the apple cart of power in the Middle East. Now, Putin installs his guy in Ukraine, in Kiev. Then that guy was ousted. Well, that created more of a power vacuum. All the pipelines running to Ukraine, that is vital to Russia and its growth for what's coming up. Okay, so Russia must do the same thing in Ukraine that it did in Crimea. It's going to send its troops to the border, and it's going to waltz in there and take over the place without taking a single shot. Unlike the shock and awe and the devastation that Bush did in the sovereign nation of Iraq, right? And the way that we've been with Afghanistan, working with that's not the way to do it. Trying to change the regime in Syria so they can install a Rothschild on central bank, pressuring Iran. That the United States is in the wrong there. The freedom fighters are the people of Syria and Iran. Iran hasn't attacked anybody in 300 years. They have as much right to develop nuclear energy as everybody else, reducing the world's demand for oil. That should be part of the program, and it is. And Russia can give Iran all the nukes they want. They can be hand-delivered to Israel if that's what everybody wanted, but that's not what everybody wants. So there's a lot of misinformation. Next thing is Flight 370. I made a special video for both of these topics, and this is going to come to what this has to do with is drones. This has to do with drone technology that was stolen by the Taliban, being sold to the Chinese, could not be shipped directly, was sent to Malaysia, and then on Flight 370, 6 crates weighing 6 tons were being sent to China, who was purchasing it. Right? Well, the Americans found out. This is like a Jason Bourne story. They did put a person on the plane. They did use the fly-by-wire technology to take over the plane, not by somebody on the inside, but it was flown by the outside. Our giant naval base there in the Indian Ocean was utilized, and this craft could be very well at the bottom of the Indian Ocean, but after the payload was removed. This is very complicated, like 9/11. We're not going to have enough information to be able to resolve this, but I'm connecting the dots between the evidence of what the evidence is saying. And Pakistan does have a role in it because that's where the drone killings are going on. And what the Chinese are trying to get a hold of is the drone technology so it can be neutralized. That's what this is about. And the global war on terror, the illegal war on terror, is what Russia and China and Iran and Syria are all fighting against. They are on the right side of this. The Americans are like the Nazis and are on the bad side of this. So this is also a war on NATO. Obama's going out there and making the United States look weaker. He's dismantling the military. You see, we're downsizing the military at the same time that Russia is making its move. NATO's in no position to do anything. And this could find Germany and other European nations joining Russia because the Russian energy is about to go to China. And whenever you see China and Russia start building the new world reserve currency and gathering nations, the United States is the third world banana republic that is going to be left out in the cold. So now I want to take you back with the remaining time back to the radio schedule, if I can get there. And this Friday night, I'm going to be on the Next Level radio show, the first 30 minutes with Aurora. And I'm going to do something a little different and bring some of the questions from the newsletter and answer them there because we're not getting callers, and that's been recommended to me, and I'm going to try it. this week. So I'll see you guys on Revolution Radio. That's at midnight Friday. See ya.